Not the Footy Show.
G'day everyone, welcome to episode 196 of Not the Footy Show. I'm Warrick Nicolson. This is the YouTube version of our Origin 2 preview podcast that was done with Robb last night. It's already on iTunes / Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called right now. Big question is, where is Latrell? He's been dropped from the Origin team for New South Wales for game number 2 against Queensland. We have to win the game. And Freddy has put his foot down. He hasn't picked him based on form. And we look into the reasons why that is just form, or is it just form? That is the big question on our lips as we head into must-win territory for the Blues. Full analysis of both the teams picked for Game 2, New South Wales making 7 changes and Queensland making just 2. And we look at which Origin coach is going crazier quicker. Is it Kevy Walters, who seems to have dialed up the crazy even more after Game 1 when they won the match that he said they would win? Or is it Freddie Fittler, who... I don't know if he's picking his team. Who's picking the team? Is Greg Alexander picking the team? Is Freddy picking the team? We go into all this and a little bit more as, I get a little bit frustrated. And then we actually have some questions on the podcast this week. Crusher tackles, what is going on with them? We actually think they've been around for a while. The NRL is just waking up to it. And we look at rep round and everything is good and bad about that. It's great to have specific tests being played, the Women's State of Origin. It's just Robb Cox and I are kind of hoping we get a little bit more of this over a longer period of time in the middle of the season and actually have the coaching fraternity endorse it by letting their players play. So this is the YouTube version. It's just the podcast version put on YouTube. That's pretty much it. If you've got a comment, a question, if you like it, hit a like button down the bottom, subscribe. As I've been Warrick Nicholson. Listen to me and Robb Cox. Waffle on for about an hour and 20 minutes on Not the Footy Show, episode 196. We'll see you next time.
Not the Footy Show.
So Ponga is going to kick off Series 38, game 115 of Origin, and Clemmer comes back. Here's Cleary, shows it, gives it to Desco, out of a tackle, got the ball to Morris, he's over! Josh Morris has got the try. Played back there by Papali, then Munster, Kafusi, Ponga links in, here's Corey Oates for the corner again. Here's Whiten, fending shade, intercepted, and Gagai is away to score his 10th Origin try in 11 games. The speed of a gazelle, Dane Gagai. Now Ponga, floating a pass for Gagai, Gagai's got another one, Gagai's done it again. Kotrick, a long pass. Walker gets it back for Murray. Murray, Trebojevic, and Trebojevic plunges over. Back it comes to Walker. Now to Cleary. Now it's with the 17. Crichton gets it away. Then the ball comes from Cleary. Comes down to Maguire. And that might just about do it.
Last play, here we go.
Cook takes Tedesco with him. Can't get Tedesco. Gets Trebojevic. Goes to Cleary, stabs a kick over for Kotrick. Here's a touch and go and Ponga! It's all over.
The biggest talking points, obviously, the trial. That was very difficult.
That's the hardest thing I've had to do. The great thing was he scored a couple of tries today. And I just hope he gets his smile back and his swagger, and it won't be too long before he's playing rep footy.
When did you make that decision? Was that today?
That's today. It was all made today.
Was it purely form with Latrell? What were some of the factors for you?
Well, the biggest one, we have expectations up at Suncorp, and we made sure we didn't meet those expectations. We really need our players to work hard for each other, and at the end of the day, Queensland wanted more than us, which is a bit of a shame, and I suppose Latrell, he's a bit of a consequence of that.
When you say expectations, are purely on field? There's a bit of speculation about off field.
No, mate, his week was fantastic. There's nothing to do with anything off the field, it was purely on the field.
G'day everybody, welcome to episode 196 of Not the Footy Show. I'm Warrick Nicholson, your host, and the other host with the most, because I don't have a lot, is Mr. Robb Cox, is over there in Camden.
G'day, mate. How you going?
Very, very well. I'm just doing tremendous. I made the Origin team.
You made the Origin team. How'd that work out for you?
Well, they've got to try and replace Latrell Mitchell, so they've just rung anybody who's ever worn an item of New South Wales clothing has pretty much got the call.
I think for myself, it's been a lot of self-reflection after that Origin series, and then the end of that season wasn't very good for myself at the Roosters. We lost in the prelim, so ever since then, I was at the Roosters last year and we won the comp. So I sort of reflected after that, and I realised that something needed to change, and I feel like I've fixed up a lot of things in my life that were a disruption to the way that I perform, and I feel like that's given me the opportunity for Brad to actually pick me and be able to rely on me.
Yeah, well, mate, Latrell is free and easy for the next week or so.
Well, he was free and easy for about a week and a half after the first Origin, and some would argue free and easy during the 80 minutes. We have the news, mate, that obviously Latrell Mitchell is gone. He is no longer in the New South Wales setup. He has been, basically, he's been punted. It's not even a case of New South Wales coming out and saying that these are the reasons off the field of why he's not in the team. Freddie Fittler has said categorically, whether you believe him or not, that it is the performance on the field in Origin 1 as the reason that Latrell Mitchell is not playing for New South Wales on Sunday night. What was your first reaction?
Oh, look, I smell the pungent aroma of BS in the air. It's got to be more than that, mate. I mean, anyone, he's 22 years old. I would have thought at 22, I know he's a professional footballer, but he could be entitled to one ordinary evening. So it's not just about the performance. There's got to be more to it, and I don't know because I'm not privy to any of their conversations, but it just reeks of there being more to it, but we're not going to say anything because we're in a little bit of damage control, or maybe the Roosters don't want to say anything, or there's something.
It's just, I think the hard bit is, and we'll get to the other reasons why I'm angry or disillusioned or whatever word you want to use, but it's the fact that, yeah, he wasn't good in Game 1, but there were a few players that weren't good in Game 1. Some of those players have been dropped as well, admittedly, but we lost the game by 4 points. Now, if a player had been so cataclysmically poor, which is basically what has to happen for a player of Mitchell's ability and potential in big games to get dropped, you'd think we would have got beaten by a few more points than 4, and that's the bit that doesn't line up with the argument his performance wasn't good enough. Because, if we'd won by 4, does Freddy still make that decision? And Mitchell could have been as ineffective and we would have won by... that's the bit that doesn't line up here. And he can claim that it's all about, he'll come back better player and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. But we'll get into the changes in a sec after we start the opener. But I wanted to kick off with just our initial reactions. And I'm with you. There's got to be something more in regards to the period of time after the game as opposed to the lead up. He did say in his presser that his preparation for Mitchell was outstanding, couldn't ask any more, but he did not elaborate at all about the post. And the chat is that basically he left Brisbane, went down to Taree, had his week also by himself or with his family. And I think part of it has to be how he Latrell Mitchell handled that departure back to Taree. There's got to be something in there that has really basically made Freddy angry, because that's the only way that it explains, is that Freddy must have literally, lost his temper a little bit, old Freddy, I imagine, because there's no other reason why you punt him.
Yeah, well, I mean, your detective work sounds about right.
And only one man can solve it.
Officer Jacques Cluzeux, gendarme, third class.
I think there might have been, he had that real standout game, like 5-6 weeks ago against the Tigers at the SCG that night, and then they're saying since that game he hasn't been at his best. To me, during the first Origin game, he did look. I wasn't watching him the whole game, but there were moments where he looked a little disinterested.
Yep.
There were moments where he looked a little bit disengaged, and maybe Freddie, other than what's happened off the field, if anything, maybe Freddie has lost a bit of trust in Latrell at the moment, and he wants to maybe have that earned back. I'm not entirely sure, but there is one little clue, and that is our great mate, the great Gus Goulding. He was talking last year during Origin discussions about all of the stuff that Latrell has going on off the field.
Yep.
And then he kind of dumped that narrative after Latrell was picked and didn't really speak too much about it again. And I'm just wondering if he did have a lot of stuff going on off the field, if that stuff is still happening. We know that his brother was charged with assault earlier this year in a nightclub incident whilst Latrell was there. I think Latrell, I'm not too sure. Again, I don't know him, but I get the feeling that he may have a lot of stuff going on with his family, and
Yep.
I think
there's a report today that some of his relatives have passed away in recent weeks.
Yep. Yeah, I heard that one as well. So
part of it.
There's that. That's upset the apple cart a little bit, but I do think that the whole Taree thing, going home from Brisbane to Taree, I think that was totally unexpected as far as the Roosters and the New South Wales officials were concerned. I think Freddy would have liked everyone to, as a winning or losing team, to go back to Sydney as a team and then disband from there. That's the feeling I get anyway.
And look,
Again,
I think it's worth just saying, because we're not. I can't categorically say how the Blues left Queensland. I don't know the facts in regards to whether they got in cabs and went to the airport. Other players went here, where, and everywhere. But there's definitely no suggestion that everything was hunky-dory after the game in regards to why that would not be a reason why he's been dropped. I guess is part of why we're going down that road. I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah. Yeah, look, the Roosters say that they knew it was going to happen, but I guess they probably would say that, given that they're probably going to cover for him a little bit. Again, I'm only hearing whispers and not a whole lot of whispers at that. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing, but he's been replaced. He's been replaced by Jack Whiten, which is interesting as well.
Yeah,
so,
well, we'll get to that after the break, but that is the opener. We had to start with Latrell. I think it's pretty clear that both Rob and I are a little bit perplexed as to the core reason why Latrell's not there. I know from a New South Wales Blues fan's perspective, I'm devastated he's not there because he makes our team better. But this is Freddy's decision, and we'll go into the rest of those decisions after the break here on Not the Footy Show.
Not the Footy Show.
Well, I rang Braithen Aston. He said he couldn't play, so I was actually... Jimmy was the last 5'8" that was standing, so pretty much... great to have him back in camp. It doesn't take long for Jimmy to warm to everyone, and already you can see that the place has got a different personality. He's had some pressure put on him, and the last 2 games he's been great. He won the game with a field goal in the last 5 minutes on the weekend, and set up a try earlier in the game as well. And I think himself most understands that we need to play better at the start of the year, and we had expectations of how he should have been playing, and he just sees it's come to this now, and I think the pressure's helped him, and he's come good. Yeah, just the partnership with Nathan. The fact is they had a big game on the weekend. They won at the death. It tells you that they're our best opportunity to handle the pressure. The big thing is we need to make it happen, and I pick players that I know are going to go over and make it happen. And that's how the team was picked. Let's just see how it falls after that. Yeah, well, he was in a grand final winning team last year. Made a big decision to go to Parramatta, and pretty consistent the whole season. And one thing that we're most really troubled is having trouble getting out of trouble. And he's a big body, and he does that very well for Parramatta. So I think he's come in at the right time. It was one of the phone calls that makes coaching worthwhile. When I rang him, and he's on his way home from the game last night, and that's one of the real positives about being a coach.
When you say off-field troubles, do you look at doing a boost band for camp or something like that?
No comment. For a long time, for about 10 years. So, blokes like Dale, yeah, exactly, it has been. And blokes like Josh Jackson, Dale Finucane, they're just tireless. They just work so hard, and they put their body through so much. And that's once again, that was a really nice phone call to make to Dale and say, you finally made it, and you just know where you're going to get from Dale Finucane.
You also welcomed Daniel Safidi into the side as well.
Yeah, great to see. He's got a nice big smile. He's a big body. When you lose someone like David Clemmer, you just can't replace them sort of people, but they work together. He knows what's expected, and I think he's been doing a great job for Newcastle. Yeah, I think given the circumstances, last year we led from the front. We won the first game, so we didn't have to deal with this. I think the experience of Wade Graham, even Blake Ferguson coming back, is really going to help us over there. Yeah, well, Jax will be on the left-hand side. Josh Morris, I think. The fact is, Tom Trebojevic we just need to get him in the team somewhere. But we really appreciate Josh's efforts in the first game. Scored a great try. So, if anything was a problem, he was straight back in. But it was just the fact that Tom Trbojevic, we just need to get him in the team. Yeah, they've both played centre before. Tom's played for Australia in the centres and Jack's played in the centres for Canberra. So I'm very confident they can do the job. We've got a week to prep the boys and get them used to the people they're going to defend with and attack with. But I'm very confident that they'll be comfortable playing in those positions.
One more quick one. Tarek Sims back in the side as well. You're pretty stoked, and he gives you that enforcer role too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, and we missed that in the first game. The fact was, I think we sort of really looked after Tyson in the first game, and that's why we chose Angus over Tarek this time. Boyd Cordner's going in with a bit of an injury, so and like I said, we get that in very aggressive, and we missed that in the first game. No.
Okay, we're back. It is episode 196. It's the State of Origin 2 preview. I probably should have said that right off the top of the show, but I guess once we started talking about Latrell Mitchell, we're going to go off in a tangent, mate. He's out. He's gone. Cody Walker, he is out. He is gone. Angus Crichton, gone. Josh Morris, gone. Payne Haas, David Clemmer, Nick Kotrick, all injured, mate. We've brought in, well, the old guard, which is interesting enough. James Maloney comes in at 5'8", Tom Trbojevic in the centres, Blake Ferguson on the wing, Dale Finucane, Tarek Sims on the bench, and Daniel Saifidi is the bolter, the Andrew Johns selected bolter to replace Clemmer up front. We take out the Latrell Mitchell news, and what's the reaction to who's come into the team?
Well, my reaction is I think Josh Morris could feel a little hard done by, although, we know that Freddy wanted to get Tommy Trbojevic back into the team somehow. I know Kotrick was injured.
Yep.
But in one way, the thing that would have made sense and rewarding a guy that a loyal servant of New South Wales and had a pretty good game in the last one would have been to put Trbojevic on the wing, on the right wing, and give him a free roaming kind of a card. But Freddie's brought back Fergo, and I'd say this is Fergo's third and last chance.
He played 2013, then he played 2016-17. Had the nice little drinking sesh with Josh Dugan for the second time, which he evidently didn't learn from. And then is back in the team for 2019.
Apparently he's off the sauce.
He said since Christmas, I think it is. We've
179 days.
We've played the audio that I sent through to Cocksmith this afternoon already on the show, and you heard it. And yeah, we're not going to delve into it too deeply. What I will say is that if this is the time when the penny dropped for Blake Ferguson, obviously a lot of other pennies hit the floor without making a noise because, he's got through a period of time there where there's been a lot of reasons to reform your life, and it's never clicked. So good luck to him if this is the one that does it for him.
He's playing well. He's playing well for club footy. He's killing it.
I think there's an emphasis on stats with Ferguson, which I think is overstated. Don't get me wrong. I think the role that Freddy talks about that he wants him to play, which is that bring him out of trouble sort of role that Kotrick tried to do on in game one, and I think as a collective, I think we just sat in the hour and a half way too long, and I honestly don't think Ferguson would have made a shred of difference in that game one in regards to that. We were just camped at our end, and that was Queensland applying pressure and us not being able to do anything. But what I will say is that the decision to play Trbojevic at right centre, I'm fine with. I am, and we were both listeners of the Phil Gould podcast, which is outstanding. But yeah, he has been on the Jack Whiten as a left centre campaign for a long time, and especially in the last month or so. It's been just, if you've been listening to the podcast, everybody, he has been saying it like almost every single time he talks about Canberra. So I wouldn't have no doubt he's had some influence here on Freddy in regards to what he does to replace Mitchell. I actually think it could fit Whiten to a T because he doesn't have to worry about passing the ball. I feel sorry for Josh Adokar, but that's the reality. And I think defensively he'll be fine, the centres. That's the reason that Jared Croker wasn't there. Look, there's a lot of reasons why he's a fantastic rugby league player, Jared Croker, but he's pretty much not getting in because they want a tougher steel in defence, and that's just unfortunately the reality. Having said that, Blake Ferguson can't tackle, so yeah, sometimes some things get ignored. They're the guys in.
Harsh.
Who won? Fergo.
Fergo.
Okay, sorry, I'll take that back. He's not He actually doesn't actually tackle anybody. He runs out and misses everybody. So, yeah, you're right. I'm right. He doesn't actually make contact at all. Maloney in at 5/8, mate. I'm very happy with this decision, and I'm perplexed as to why it didn't happen in game one.
I think it had something to do with the Panthers' form. One would argue that Nathan Cleary shouldn't have been there either, but I think Nathan Cleary is a long-term project. At least, if I think he's got a leave pass for this year, unless he has a Barry in the second game here. I think you'll find he'll play in all three games. That doesn't mean to say he'll play there in 2020 if he's not travelling very good again. But I think Maloney partners up with him pretty well. I mean, there's a bit of yin and yang going on with those two, and they know each other. And Maloney, when he needs to, will grab the game by the scruff of the neck and become the dominant half and do what he needs to do in his mind to do the best job for the team. So I think it's a good move. I don't know if Mitchell Pearce would have been a good move, and the reasons aren't because I don't think he could do what Maloney can do, but I think because of I think he's mentally scarred a little bit. I also don't think there's much in it for him. If it's not totally his team and they lose and it's not his fault, everyone will blame him again.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's really got a lot to gain by playing Origin again other than to tick a box. So, I heard today that he'll be 100% fine for round 15, which was highly expected. I don't think he's that injured, but maybe injured enough not to play on Sunday. I'm not sure. If there was a club, it'd be interesting if there was a club round this weekend as well.
Well, that's an interesting question in regards to all the rep games that are happening this weekend, because apparently players are injured left, right and centre. Who knew? The Maloney thing, I just want to go into, I guess, which is the main part of this segment, which is who's picking the New South Wales team? Because Fittler has come out after the loss in game one, and his press conference pretty much said, we're going to win this game. We picked a team to win this game. Now, there's 3 games a series, 3 games a year, Cocksmith. Why the heck didn't he pick what he believed was the team that could win game one? And this is the bit that frustrates me. Who's picking the team?
Well, I know you've got a theory, and I think we're thinking pretty similarly. But and look, there always have been selectors. Now that they're kind of contracted out and are part of the Freddy coaching staff, is no surprise. I guess he's got a little bit closer control on it as to what it used to be in the old days when the CRL and the New South Wales Rugby League would fight over certain choices.
And then give that to the coach,
Yeah, but I think, look, I definitely Brandy and Danny Badiris are having a big say, and Gus is probably having a whisper every now and then, or maybe Freddie's asking for Gus's advice.
I'd probably leave that on
certain players. Look, to me, for mine, mate, the first team, we've discussed this off podcast land. The first team for mine was a bit of a weird mix-up. I was weirded out by the choice of Jack Whiten as a player who's really an out-and-out centre who's been biding his time at fullback and 5'8". I found it a weird choice. They needed to get Cody Walker off the field to get him on. So it was a strange choice for me. I guess he makes more sense now at left centre. Angus Crichton didn't aim up really much in the game. I think Freddie's rotation of Clemmer was diabolical. At one stage there, I believe I saw Clemmer,
Frizzell,
Vaughan.
No, Vaughan had gone back on. It was Clemmer, Frizzell, Trebojevic, and Walker, I guess, at that stage. Arguably our 3 best forwards. Yeah,
so you've got 3 high strike forwards all sitting on the bench, cooling their heels together, which I found really weird. But look, Origin is a pressure game, not only for the players but for the staff, and maybe he got a little wrong. Maybe he completely planned that. I'm not sure. Freddie, dances to his own beat. But I do think it was a mistake in the rotation. Clemmer, even he's got a big motor, but in Origin playing him for 50 minutes straight, other than just the break for half time, was a little bit strange for me.
Well, the strange part was that Crichton played 51 minutes. Cam Murray played 50 minutes on debut. Payne Haas played 40 minutes straight. We discussed it in the leading into game one. We didn't need that bench to play those minutes. You want your best players back on the field.
Yeah.
And then this is the bit where I go, well, I feel sorry for poor old Crichton in some respects in the regards to he's played 50 minutes in 3 of the 4 Origins he's played. In game 1, he plays 50 minutes, and then he's not good enough. Then why'd you leave him on the field so long? There's some question marks in regards to that. And that's what, I guess, led me to the question about who's picking the team, is because the comment, we picked this team to win the match. Well, that means that in game 1, you kind of bowed to that whole little, pick on form. And form is a great thing, but in the space of 2 weeks, Cody Walker went from the best 5/8 in the game to he's not good enough for Origin. That's the problem when you go with this media beat up around form, is that you're not picking a team to win a game of football. You're picking a team based on, let's call it, NRL merit. Well, that's nice. That's great. But you're also picking for Origin performance. So why wouldn't you stick with the team the key cogs of the team? And he admitted it after last year's series. He said James Maloney was pretty much our most important player. And he bowed to this mentality that, you got to pick the players in form. Well, that's great. But
so
you've shown it's Greg Alexander. I got no doubt Greg Alexander has pulled the strings.
Who picked Cody Walker?
Greg Alexander. I got no doubt.
So you reckon Alexander, as you know, a member of the board, or is he chairman, whatever he is at Penrith, has left his own player Maloney out in the cold and brought in Cody Walker?
Because you've got to remember that's part of this. And look, I'm talking about butt people, you know this, but this is entertainment, so we'll go with it. What strikes me about the position that Alexander is in particular with the Fox Sports commentary, all right, is that you're paid to make observations. And there's been this sort of running gag on Fox for the whole year, and it's been for a number of years since Brandy's been involved in the setup, but it's always like, is this guy in the mix? Is this guy in the mix? And Brandy will say, he's in the mix. And then poor Danny Badera's got pulled. And he's in the mix. Well, that's nice. But Greg Alexander, as my memory serves, and I could be completely wrong, but I've watched enough of these commentary teams to have it tattooed on the brain, is that he has been pushing the Cody Walker wheelbarrow extremely hard. If you push it that hard when you're paid for this opinion, and then it comes to the point where you're picking a team and you're part of this person that's making the ingredients for the cake, there's a certain level of pride that says, well, if I've been pushing this guy that hard, I've got to push for him. He's got to be in there. And
I'm hearing what you're saying.
Yeah, and it frustrates me that, after one game, that conviction's out the window and we're back to the guy that you should have picked for game 1. And I'm not saying what they've done for game 2 is wrong in regard. I think it's the right decision bringing Maloney back in. But it proves to me, once again, that you cannot pick teams based on, I'm doing the inverted brackets thing, form, because it's you're not picking an NRL game, like an NRL team. You're picking an Origin team for 3 games, the match up against an opponent that last year couldn't beat you in 2 of the 3 games. It just boggles my mind, and I don't think Freddy has had, or may even still have, complete control over the team that he actually ends up with. And that's the bit that I guess frustrates me, because I had been lulled into this sense of security. And you can listen to our podcast before game 1, everybody. We thought Freddy's in control here. He's nice and calm, he's cool, and it's been proven that maybe he's not. I'm just going
to play devil's advocate for a minute.
I like a bit of that.
Don't believe that Queensland have improved since last year?
I don't... How do I put this? We were outstanding in the first half in game 1. It took a bit of Ponga brilliance with passing in the second half to put us on our toes, and then obviously Jack Whiten's pass to Dane Gagai didn't help at the end. But
they crossed the line 3 other times.
I wouldn't say that they weren't outstanding, but they were better than us as the end result. But I wasn't blown away by what Queensland put against us in game 1. In saying that, I thought we played above our station in the series last year to win, and then ran out of steam in the second half of game 3, and obviously didn't win at 3-0. I would say that there's some serious improvement in this New South Wales team heading into game 2, and I don't know if there's that in Queensland. And it doesn't mean they didn't play. I thought they played well in game 1, but I don't think they're a team that you go like we have in the past and go, they've got this player, this player, this player, this player, this player. That's not that case anymore.
I'll tell you what I'm fearful of. I'm fearful of when Ponga finds his feet alongside Cameron Munster. I don't really want to see that this year. But I think we're going to see some Ponga magic very soon. He's starting to, he's played a what's he up to now? His third game of Origin.
Yeah.
I think, mate, I think he's about, at the moment, the most exciting ball runner that we've got in the game. And Cameron Munster's not far behind him as far as tenaciousness goes and the will to win. Cameron Munster just oozes out of him, And look, I'm no Queensland fan, you know that. But I reckon they do have a bit of improvement in them. For a couple of positions, a couple of combinations to click, and when it does, New South Wales had better be ready. And I really do believe that. I think Ben Hunt was pretty good at 9. I can't believe he made 40 odd tackles.
He was. We've had a discussion. We just caught up and had a chat, but he was not a weak link, and that's really what Queensland didn't have to worry about him being exposed. To your point around Munster and Ponga, what I will say is that our best 2 players, or New South Wales' best 2 players in game 1 were Cook and Tedesco. Mm-hmm. What I am encouraged by, that sort of almost devil's advocates, you're a devil's advocate, is that our best 2 players can worry Queensland just as much as their best 2 players can worry us. And that's something we haven't had since the early 2000s. And that's the bit that I guess makes me not as fearful as Queensland as I have been for 12 years. Because we've got that ability, and we showed it in game 1 at different points, to make them really go on their heels. And we probably just didn't push it through enough. We need to wrap up on the New South Wales team. Dale Finucane gets his debut. Congratulations, Dale. And Tarek Sims is back in to be Angry Man, which Fittler admitted he didn't have in game 1, which is another one of those things where I think the team was just picked on so many different levels of this, that, and the other that we've said it. You need Tarek Sims to play 15 minutes and try and basically kill Kalen Ponga or Cameron Munster. That's what his role will be. And you're saying, okay, that's your role. It's not about, as much as I'd love to say, that everyone talks about the Cam Murray quick play the balls. That's great, but Origins play in that sort of style where sometimes those big plays where you make your presence felt is worth 50 tackles or worth 40 tackles or worth, that kind of thing. And that's the bit that I'm glad about parts of this team that have come in, is that there seems to be a little bit more of that, we'll win those, I hate saying it, those one-on-one battles, those 1%ers or whatever, maybe a little bit more with this team than what we had in game 1.
Yeah. No, I think Tarek Sims is definitely there for his enforcing and Cameron Murray's in there to be able to control a bit more tempo and play a bit more an up-tempo game, which they know Queensland doesn't really want to do. So, I think our bench looks better than Queensland's. It's just that I'm still worried about the 1 and 6 combining, and when Hunt finds his feet as well at 9, it'll be an interesting game. Either way, it'll be a very interesting game. I've just got a little bit of a fear factor with Queensland now. One up, they don't often lose from 1-0 up.
Last point I want to make on the Fittler situation is in the presser and then a follow-up he had with 100% footy. He pretty much, in the presser, he said, this team was picked this afternoon. Yep, clear. Today. It was all picked today. And then we found out that Blake Ferguson was rung on Saturday night and told you're playing Origin. And then we found out that Brad Fittler didn't actually even see the whole performance, which means he probably didn't see much of it at all, of Latrell Mitchell versus Canterbury.
He's just got to go and play good for the Roosters. He's a fantastic player. You can see even against Canterbury. I don't know his full involvement because I didn't get to watch the game fully, but he scored 2 tries, and that's what sort of player he can be. I think at the start of the year when he played a fantastic game, I'm pretty sure it was against the Tigers, and he said himself there's stuff that he can work on his game and get back and bring the ball out of trouble and do a few things like that for the team. So he's a great player. He's young. He's obviously, he's coming off, possibly one of the best years for a kid his age of all time. So, I think he'll get back and the footy will become important and, he'll start playing some great footy for the Roosters.
I think there were reasons for that, though. Like, I think he picked Blake Ferguson after Blake's game. He called him after his game, so he made sure he got through the game. And, mate, I guess what he's saying about Latrell is it probably didn't matter if Latrell had scored 12 tries. He wasn't going to play this game. So.
And that's the question. I guess that's the thing that I'm saying in regards to if we're going to completely say it's on form, then that's if I'm Latrell Mitchell, I'm going, well, yeah, it didn't matter how I played, did it? Like, and that's the bit. Well, I don't know. It's just it's those little
Latrell
things.
Latrell would know, mate. Latrell would know. Like he would have spoken to Freddy after. Like, don't think for one moment they haven't spoken between when he left for Taree and yesterday. He would have spoken, and Freddy would have probably said to him, mate, what you did or what's happened or what's transpired isn't on, and I'm not happy about it. So,
one thing I will defend Fittler on is the complaint that came in the press, I think, yesterday about, how dare Latrell Mitchell find out he's been dropped on the field on Sunday afternoon. Well,
we had an announcement to make it 6 p.m.
Was Freddy supposed to be on the sideline and just come up to him and say it to him there? Imagine the scene that creates. Like, there's some unrealistic expectations, which is pretty much this podcast so far on New South Wales. We'll go to the break and we'll be back to talk about Queensland. Well, at least the team they've picked for game number 2.
Not the Footy show.
No matter what Freddy does there, mate, he's on a lose-lose. He can't ring him before the game, because if he does, then he's the world's biggest bastard for upsetting him before the game. He can't ring him straight after the game because he's got commitments. If he rings him at 8 p.m, he might get angry at Latrell. I mean, what do you do?
The one thing that I did note is that they talked to Boyd Cordner, who's the New South Wales captain, on the field, and he had no idea that Mitchell wasn't going to get picked.
Well, Latrell refused interviews on the field.
But I would have thought Fittler may have given Boyd a bit of a heads up that he wasn't going to pick.
He said he didn't. He says he didn't.
Yeah,
so.
He didn't. That's what I'm saying. I would have thought he would have got it, given that he's the guy that plays outside you. I don't know.
He probably didn't want to put him in a situation where he knew something about his fate before Latrell knew about it. If you know what I'm saying.
Not the Footy show.
Okay, we're back. It's episode 196. Warrick Nicolson here. Rob Cox in Camden. Here being Camaro. There you go. You know where I live. Don't kill me. Queensland. They've made 2 changes. Joe Offengawi and Joe Arrow are out through injury. And Tim Glasby and Jared Wallace are in for Queensland. Now, as a New South Welshman, Cocksmith, I am stoked because we just have 2 plotters on the field for game number 2. I am happy.
Oh, I like Tim Glasby. I like him. You can say what you like about him.
Not in regards to whether he's a good player or not. I'm just literally saying on the field in Origin, I am stoked that there's 2 blokes there that aren't that mobile. That's a win for Damien Cook.
Yeah, you could be right. There could be a couple of heavy boots around. It's going to be raining, by the way, or at least the day before.
It's going to be a fair dinkum ice rink then, because that's the big complaint about Optus Stadium is that it's hard as rock.
Yeah, well, they're saying that it's got decent drainage though. They're saying that it's going to have, it's probably going to be fine. But look, I don't know because I've never been there. I'll be there on Sunday though. Yes,
you will. So the 2 changes. I think. Look, Wallace has got in. He probably was a bit unlucky to miss out in game 1, given that I know that Walters loves him, but look, he is a penalty machine, and he's got errors in him. He also has a good carry in him, but again, how many minutes is he going to play? What kind of role does he end up playing for Queensland? That's the question. Dylan Napper apparently is playing with a busted ankle, or wrist, or hand, or something like that.
Big Pappy.
That's not good. And then Glasby comes in. So I guess what I'm saying is that these changes, there's definitely you put it this way: Glasby and Wallace mobility versus Offengawi and Arrow mobility. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, Arrow was a standout last game.
He was. And I just think, given how good Cook was in game 1, and part of what I think was the reason that Ben Hunt was as serviceable he was in the game, and he wasn't that much of a threat in attack, but he was well protected around that ruck by his front rowers.
Sure.
And even though he didn't do much in attack, I think that was partly because he had to make so much defence. Whether it was hard contact or not, because I don't remember Clemmer or anyone like really going at him too hard, but he still made I think almost 50 tackles. Yeah. I like the fact that New South Wales have some things they can target. Having said that, if I'm Queensland, my whole game plan is just to kick it and run it at Blake Ferguson all night. But it's good to have Damien Cook and Tedesco running in and around. There's 2 big guys, but 2 guys that can get turned on the inside.
Yeah, well, it was good that neither Cook or Tedesco played on the weekend as well. So they'll have fresh legs, whereas Cordner played 80 minutes, I believe, which I found...
Cook played on Saturday night.
Did Cook play?
Yeah.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I was at that game. You know who who I'm thinking of.
Do you want me to edit this part out, Coxsmith?
No, just leave it.
So are there no photos of Damien Cook?
I don't know.
It's just
I'll tell you
Billy Britton. He's like in 50.
It shows what autopilot sometimes I go on when I'm at a game, but there wasn't a Burgess to be cited as well, though, was there?
What's that?
That game. There was no Burgess.
No, there was no Burgoyne. No Burgoyne at all. That's the first time in who knows how long. There's been no Burgoyne for Souths. Yeah, get used to it, Souths. Apparently George is on his way.
Where's he going?
Yeah, well, we'll see.
We expect to win game 2. That's what our focus is on game 2. With the team we've selected, we know there is improvement in our team. After reviewing the game, I'll probably give it a 5. Maybe if I'm being kind, Kevy, a 6 out of 10. We expect to improve over the week. That's why we're here. We've come here early to get ourselves mentally and physically prepared for the game of our lives. DCE had 5 weeks out before he played his first Origin game from major surgery. And for him to play the way he did in game 1, I thought it was outstanding. And Ben Hunt, that was his first game at hooker, in the toughest game in the world, and he comes out, what a performance that he gave in game 1. He will get better in game 2. I can see it in him. I know. I've got a lot of faith and a lot of trust in what Ben can bring as a football player. He's a tough little bugger. I'm here to talk about this Queensland team, how good this Queensland team is going to be in game 2. The other team have done what they've done, but that doesn't sort of bother. It doesn't bother me one little bit. We're here to focus about Queensland and getting our own game in the right order, so that when we go out there on Sunday, we're ready for the game of our lives. It's always about Queensland. That's what and we've been very loyal. So, and that's what we've done with it. Great belief in this team. The only changes that we've had have been through forced. We've got a lot of faith in the guys that we have in this side, that they will get the job done for us on Sunday. Oh, well, there's lots of Queenslanders living over here, and I think generally, it's a nice colour maroon. Everyone seems to get behind it. And, I'm sure that the Perth people or those that are not from the other 2 states are getting behind the Queenslanders and make sure that we do a really good job in cheering our boys home. And every Origin's important, and this one is important in Perth for no other reason, but it's an Origin game. And I said before game 1 that Origins, they're hard to win, but we expect to win. And we won game 1, and we expect to win on Sunday in game 2. Origin at Suncorp is a great event, and now we've brought it to Perth. How good is that? Has he played his best Origin game yet? No, he hasn't. His best football is in front of him, Ben. Everyone would agree with that. His best Origin game he hasn't played it yet, it's in front of him, and it will be on Sunday night.
You can't put a limit on my cafe lattes. It says so right here. And I don't want to get dirty looks when I come in here. If I want a cafe latte, you give me a cafe latte. And if I have any problems, I want to get my lawyer Jackie Charles down here, you're going to be in really big trouble.
Hey, slow down, Eddie. What's the matter?
They're making faces at me because I've had a couple of cafe lattes, but I'm entitled to them. I can have as many cafe lattes as I want. That was the settlement.
That's it?
That's it. What, you want one, George? I can get one for you. No problem. Jerry, you want one? They're delicious. My pleasure.
You've got to stop it. You're all hopped up on the caffeine.
Well, I feel like I'm talking a little faster, but it's very hard to tell.
You're racing.
Well, I got things to do. I'll see you later. Bye.
Let's get to Kevin Walters, another footballing family. He was interesting before game 1. We'd spoken about how, I think we used
Kevin.
Bullish, I think was the word we used before we heard his second press conference, which was just crazier than the first. He's been coach whispered into confusion, I'm going to call it. I don't think he knows what planet he's on, because some of the comments, and I played it before this segment, I think he knows what he wants to say. It's just, he keeps saying the same thing. And it's just getting funnier and funnier listening to him.
He's off with the fairies.
It's
like he's cooked.
If they win the series 3-0, all credit to you, Kevy. But it's getting painful to listen to, because apparently Queensland have a good team. They picked a good team. They're going to win the game 1. They're going to win game 2. They only play. I love the I don't know if it's honesty, but the positivity, but it's starting to grate me, because he gave his team 5 out of 10 in game 1, Coxsmith. So it's this amazing team, this great team, and they played 5 out of 10 in game 1. I don't know.
Didn't he say 6, 5 or 6 out of 10?
5 or 6.
He's just saying to the boys that there's some improvement in your boys. And I mean, the coach whisperer, his price has gone up.
Oh, he's into 5 figures an hour, isn't he?
He was on $5,500 an hour on Origin.
Double
1.
it.
He's probably up into 10 now. If they win 3-0, mate, he'll be Australia's highest paid bloke.
Tell you what.
Well, at least in the Queensland camp. Maybe Freddy will start talking like Kevy. Not sure. No, Kevy is acting a little bit strange, I've got to say.
Because we touched on the fact that he works for Fox and that entertainment value and that kind of stuff, and he's got that in him. But this has just been, I mean, he's dribbling more than we do, and that takes some skill. He also cannot stop talking about Ben Hunt's performance in Game 1, and the fact Ben Hunt is playing hooker. I don't know if you knew that, but if you watch any press conferences from Kevin, then apparently Ben Hunt has never played hooker before in his life until Game 1. And Kalen Ponga, apparently, the bit that I liked about his presser, his chat with, I think it was Paul Kenton the other day, or today, was he said Kalen Ponga had some nice touches at the end of the game where he basically set up 2 tries with outstanding passes. He goes, he had some nice touches at the end of the game, but he needs to do that for 80 minutes. Now, I don't know about you, but flinging cutout passes to your wingers to score tries is not something you can do for 80 minutes in a game.
We did put some nice little plays on at different stages throughout the game. Kalen Ponga come up with some really nice touches when needed. But we need that for the 80 minutes and not just for 40 or for 20. That some of the stuff that we were throwing up wasn't consistent enough to win consistently at Origin level, and that's been our focus, as I say, this week, and that's what we'll be fixing up when we hit the training paddock on Wednesday and Thursday. Those key areas defensively, and also just getting our attack just humming a little bit better, given the players that we have in those key positions.
Well, I feel like I'm talking a little faster, but it's very hard to tell.
So yeah, I can see what he's trying to do. I appreciate the fact that he's positive and enthusiastic about it, but gee whiz, it's hilarious.
Yeah, Kevy's definitely out there this year, mate.
Question for you: how many Origins has Kevin Walters coached?
Won't this be? This will be number 11.
Yeah, that's scary. Like that feels weird. It feels like he's been in the job for 2 years. It doesn't feel like this is his 4th campaign. It's a really strange feeling. It could be because he's
that's why.
It could be because he's speaking finally. I think everyone sort of just went, yeah, he's coach, but we don't need to hear from him. He's just coaching a bunch of superstars. But
the way he's talking though is like he's had the devil's dandruff up his nose. he dead set sounds like he's on something.
Which he's not. We're not alleging anything. It's just pure. It's entertainment.
But it sounds like it. It's not. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying. If you never had met Kevy before and you came across him for the first time at a press conference, you'd look at him and go, dude, you keep away from those little beagles at the airport, all right? Because they're going to be all over you like a cheap suit, my friend.
Let's just finish on Origin 2 with some predictions. And I guess my first one is, how will Origin be received in the West? How do you think the...
it'll be massive.
Yeah.
It'll be massive. It's our best game. It's the pinnacle of rugby league in Australia at this point in time. It's
our best export.
It's the most intense game. It's the fastest. It's highly kind of controversial all the time. A 22-year-old bloke gets dropped, and next thing you know, we're talking about it for a week and a half. So there's definitely some what's the word for it? It's a highly valuable and highly sought after to have in your city, and it's a great spectacle to go and watch. If you've never been to one, for all our listeners out there, get to one because it's a great game to watch.
If our reach extends to Perth and you haven't got a ticket yet, I think it's sold out, but you can probably find a ticket somewhere. It's not a bad. It's a game of football that, how do I put it? It is a blink and you miss it kind of game when you're there. You find yourself just so drawn into the tension of it all that halftime hits and you go, what?
Imagine playing it.
Oh, yeah, I know.
They all talk about it. You kind of, you make a run and make a tackle or two, and next thing it's halftime. You know? So.
Well, it's no wonder that, and I think it's a really good point you make there. It's why it doesn't matter how good you are at club level. Sometimes your game doesn't translate into the Origin arena. I think that's an example we use, and it's not a case of he'll never play Origin again, but Cody Walker didn't make an impact in Game 1 until he got benched and brought back on. And what that tells me is that that's just the way Origin can have an effect on a player, is that you can be in the form of your life, but before you know it, half-time's hit, and before you know it, there's 20 minutes to go, and all of a sudden you get a tap on the shoulder, you're coming off. You're like, what? I haven't done anything. Like, doesn't mean you haven't done anything bad. It just means that you haven't found a way into the game, and that's Origin.
Yeah.
And that's why I think
went past him, didn't it?
That's why I think you see some players who aren't great club footballers excel at Origin. And I was just watching a bit of highlights this afternoon, but from like 1992, Game 1, which I'm going to do something special for at some stage. I actually put a bit of a doco together on it. But the style of football then it's amazing to watch because it's just this non-stop people just getting smashed, but then there's been football played on the back of it and all the rest of it. But there's some players in those games that you go, they weren't great club footballers, but when you watch them in Origin, they just found ways to make impact. And
Name names.
No, I'm going to save it for the actual deep dive into it.
Name
but
one. Give me one.
Rocket Rod Wishart. I mean, who else do you want? I mean, he could
Rod Wishart. He was a great club footballer.
Oh, he was average. But at Origin level, he was sensational.
You've been raiding bloody Kevy's bag, I think.
Entertainment. E squared. There's one for BC. That's okay. Tips, predictions. I'll start as to say you can have a little more time to think about it. I think New South Wales, after I don't even know if we've been bagging them or saying they're good. I've been a bit confused this whole podcast, but yeah, Kevy was generous. I reckon New South Wales 14-10. I reckon it'll be a much lower scoring game.
14-10.
18-14 in game 1, but I think 14-10.
An ugly score.
Ugly score. I like an ugly score. As long as New South Wales are on the positive side of the score, it can be as ugly as it wants. New South Wales 14-10. Level the series up.
Wow. I'm going to say Queensland 16-12. Sorry. It's going to be a dead rubber in Sydney. The NRL doesn't want to hear that.
No, they don't.
They'll only get 50,000 people there, and they'll have to give 30,000 tickets away to get that. But I say 16-12, Queensland, man of the match, DCE.
Oh yeah, he wasn't huge in game 1, but he was good.
And he's back, baby.
I'm going back.
It hurts me to say it.
I'm going back. I know. I'm going back to the Cookie Monster. I think he will rip Queensland to shreds again.
I hope he does.
So 1-1, I got 1-1 going back to Sydney. You've got 2-0 to Queensland. And if that happens, I'll throw a bit of a spanner in here. If that happens, and the Titans fall apart again, because they're 1 week on, 1 week off at the moment, does Kevy take the job?
Is it offered to him?
All I'm saying is, if Queensland take the series 2-0, all right, and the Titans review comes back and says they need to change at the top, does Kevy jump?
Well,
because I think he'll get pushed if they lose. That's the we talk.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, an Origin coach is worth between $200,000 and $300,000 a year, depending on his deal. Right?
Yep.
I would say that it'd be smart for Kevy to try and get himself a 3 or 4 year deal at the Titans on $500,000 or $600,000 a year. That makes more sense money wise, and if he does win the Origin, then let's be honest, he's won 3 of 4 series. So that's a fairly successful coach, I would have thought.
It's a good resume.
Yeah. So, I reckon he would take the Titans job, mate. He'll make them pay for it because I think they're only paying Garth Brennan a smidge over $200,000 a year. They're not paying him much. Nice little food for thought there, mate.
Indeed. We'll come back after the break with your questions. We have questions, Cocksmith.
I've got questions?
We've got questions. You've got issues.
Absolutely.
We'll come back after the break on Not the Footy Show.
Not the Footy Show.
Hey, guys. Oh, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
Okay, final segment on the Footy Show. That means the music. Go for it, Mr. Music. There we go. And we have a question. Now, it's come via Twitter, of all places. We have a small...
What?
A very
is that
small...
still operating?
It is.
Still going?
Very small but loyal followers on Twitter.
What about Tumblr? Is it still going?
Well, funny thing about Tumblr, all right? I work in the social
There's
game.
a very funny thing about Tumblr.
Yes, but is that a lot of people, when they made, when you see business cards made or websites made for businesses, and they go, we need to make sure we've got all our social accounts on the website. Yep. For at least the last 5 years, if not longer, the amount of times I will see on not only business websites, but sometimes sporting teams' websites, they'll get the logos of all the different social accounts.
Yeah.
The amount of times I have seen teams or businesses take the Tumblr logo and use it as the Twitter logo is beyond. Like, it's like, you're obviously using your accounts a lot because you don't even know the difference. But yes, the funny looking T is not the Twitter logo. Just a little bit of free advice there from myself with a little bit of experience in the social game.
Keep away from Tumblr. Go on.
Yes. We have a question. He's called something else on Twitter, but his name's Brad Nicolson, so we're just going to call him that because that's what he is. He comes to us via Twitter and he says, "Dear hosts of the NTSS, I can't even say it. NTS. Yep, I'm really struggling. What's our show called again?
NTFS.
There it is. We're going to get you a hat. Just by the bar before we get through this one. Cocksmith was at a game a few weeks back. I was there with my niece and nephew, and I was thinking, I didn't think he was going to be in the game this weekend. And this guy ran up and down the sideline, and he had a hat I didn't recognise, and I'll keep looking at him going, I think that's Rob. I looked at my nephew and I said, "Is that Rob? Because he's met you." And he's going, "Oh, maybe." My niece didn't have any idea, but I've gone, I think it is. And then, it was the telltale R. Cox stance on your knees, where you've got your, it's the signature. It's the signature. It's, if they ever made a trophy, a la Winfield Cup, it would be this one where you're on your knees.
Wouldn't that be good?
Your shoes not tucked underneath you, but just sort of, it's just, and you had football boots on, by the way. You do.
I've been on my knees for 25 years,
You have, mate, you have.
It's good.
No one does it better.
Get to the sheriff's question.
But anyway, you had a different hat on than you normally do, so I wasn't quite convinced. Then I messaged you. You finally got back to me, but we have decided that there's that many photos off TV of when Cocksmith's in there getting the photo, and it's got the big cat, which I thought was apt, across the top of your hat. And we just went.
Caterpillar.
You should be. Yeah. Sorry. We should be getting some sponsorship for that. So I'll have to make you an NTFS. There we go.
All right.
Just white lettering across the front of a black hat. How's that sound?
Yep. I'll make up something else that stands for NTFS, and I'll let you know what it means.
Before I even brought that up this afternoon, I thought of all the different variations of NTFS. Yeah, there's probably a few. There you go. A poll question for those listeners who can be bothered. Hit us up on Twitter with what NTFS stands for. Anyway, back to Brad Nicolson. If the Blues lose this series, I think a lot of people owe Laurie Daly an apology. I feel like there was this narrative that when Laurie's New South Wales Blues had some terrible culture and that they should have won more than they did, and then all of a sudden, Freddy wins one series and he's fixed everything and is a genius. Laurie coached the Blues to a series win while some of the greats were still playing for Queensland. The reality is my idiot mate Glenn Cuthill could have coached New South Wales to a series win last year. What do you think of H's contribution?
Well, look, I let me get to Cuthill first. Look, we know that Cuddy couldn't run a bath, let alone an Origin campaign, right? So I don't think he could have done a better job than Freddy or Daly.
He's an artist, though, I'll say that much.
He's definitely good with the texter. Look, I think, maybe so. Maybe if Freddy falters on this one, maybe people will go, "Ooh, what's happened?" We thought that Freddy was the great wonderkind. He was going to solve all of New South Wales's problems. So, watch this space. I'll tell you in our next show. I'll tell you whether he's a saviour or whether he's a sap.
Yeah, I think the thing that Laurie Daly should forever, as the great player we know he was, and arguably the greatest player for New South Wales of all time, what I will say is that he managed to win a series with Josh Reynolds and Trent Hodkinson as his halves. So he doesn't, regardless of what Freddie's done, Laurie doesn't get enough love for that. That is one of the great mysteries of rugby league, is how the heck did we win a series with those two as halves? Wow. It still boggles the mind. Next question comes from G, from the famous WhatsApp group. Not that WhatsApp group, but our WhatsApp group. He says, if Jason Taylor was on fire, how many reasons could you come up with not to put him out? It's a harsh question from G. He is a massive Tigers fan, mind you.
Which way? How would you put him out though? Like, we got any way that we can put him out? Or
I mean, his suggestion is, you've had a few shandies, and he wouldn't even do it that way. Is what he's saying. I think this is harsh.
If Jason was on fire,
I think this is harsh. I think the only person that probably completely agrees with G is David Furlongo.
David Furlongo definitely would,
and maybe Robbie Farah. I could see that being part of it. But it's we asked for questions. That's a question we got. It's not a thing we condone or suggest that anyone should actually be doing, whether someone's on fire or not. Go find some water because it really stinks. But yeah,
unless it's an oil fire. If it's an oil fire, you're not meant to put any liquid on it. You're meant to just to cover it up. Did you know that? If you get an oil fire at home. Well, let's just say Jason's covered in oil and he's on fire. Don't pee on him because it can flare up and it might burn your bits. That's all I'm going to say about that.
There is a follow-up question from G, though. He is a frustrated Tigers fan. He asks, if Ivan Cleary spent 7 days walking through the desert without water, how many different ways could you tell him to get before you refused him service at the bar? How many ways?
There's not much love for Ivan either.
No.
Seemingly. Who does he? I guess I got a question to fire back at you. Who does he dislike more, Ivan or JT? If he had to have one back as a coach,
well, you'd have to throw Mick Potter into the mix there, wouldn't you? Because he's the one that ultimately cost them Farah and Benji in the first place.
Yeah, but if he had to have one of those two back, Ivan or Jason Taylor, which one would it be? And why? So he can answer that however he likes. You can send me a postcard.
I mean, he could probably listen to the podcast for the first time in his life. He just asked questions because I asked for him. But anyway, the second part of that is the news coming through tonight that Andrew Fafita has been done for 3 games for a crusher tackle.
And so he should.
And Mitchell Barnett as well got a couple of weeks. What came out of it, and G was the instigator of this point, I guess, is his question was, why are the players only doing this now? And my retort, and I don't know if you've read it, Cocksmith, but this has been happening for years. It just happens that the NRL's finally woken up to it because I don't have any doubt in my mind that they weren't, I'll say this carefully, they were not trying to seriously injure the players that they've landed on. But what frustrates me more than anything is this is what they're taught to do, because if you think about how the tackles happen, people are getting all technical and all the rest of it, but when you, over the course of the years, we've had grapple tackles, we've had extra men in tackles and all that rest of it. But in the last sort of 12 to 24 months, what we've seen more of is the players doing their best to get their bodies over the back of a player with the head effectively on their chest. And if you put your arms in, it slows the play the ball down. What they've worked out in the last year or so is that that's good, but if you land your body weight on the back of a player as he's backing towards you, or he's backing forward, or he's pushing forward, or whatever, it actually makes the tackle take twice as long to finish, because you get the first bit of contact which slows the ball, or slows the play, and then when you drop your body weight on someone, it makes them take the hit, then try and get up. So you're effectively probably 1.5 times as long as what a normal tackle would be, if not longer. So it's actually a tactic to try and slow the ball down. It doesn't mean the players are trying to hurt players, but what it's doing is putting the player who does these tackles or this style of defence, you hear it in the commentary all the time, so I'll finish in a sec, that the player didn't mean to do that, or what is he supposed to do? Get out? No, he's responsible for where he puts his body. There's no doubt about that at all, and that's the bit that frustrates me, is that I can't see how you can take responsibility away from the player.
Here's the thing, right? And Gal covered it off pretty nicely on 100% Footy the other night. What a lot of players do these days in attack is they'll tend to back themselves into a tackle.
Yep.
You know, because it's easier to get a ball away. It's also a much stronger way to drive your way not through the defence, but keep getting yards.
Yep.
So a tackler will continue to tackle a player until either he's on the ground, which is, that's the ultimate aim, get him on the ground, hold him down. So when he's backing himself into a tackler, it's fairly easy to see how the player ends up around the guy's neck. he's generally got his shoulders in around the guy's. The defender's got the other fella's head on his chest. Okay,
Yep.
and then someone comes in and cleans the legs up. Everyone goes to the ground, and that happens. I'm not saying that I think it should happen, but I can see, and I see it in junior football even, how it happens without anyone being trained. No boy in my team is trained to do crusher tackles, but it happens mostly because of attackers trying to back their way up the field. You get better purchase on the ground.
Oh, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're... I think that's true. Absolutely, the players do that. But what we've seen, especially, and this is why I think it's woken the NRL up to the fact that this is happening and that it's chargeable, is that in the instance of the Fafita and the Barnett, they've both effectively...
Fafita's was off the chart, mate.
They've effectively jumped to make that... So they're extending what you're talking about, which is that the player comes into them and then they get around them, and, it happens all the time. But they're jumping off their feet to... I mean, Barnett's was more graphic in regards to... You could tell he made his mind up to do it. I think Fafita's was, mate, you're about 120 kilos. What do you expect was going to happen? Like, that's the bit that I don't think he meant to. I'm going to say it. I don't think he absolutely meant to try and kill the bloke. But what I'm saying is that he's responsible for what he does with his body in that situation, and it's happened for a long period of time. So the NRL's come down on those two. But I have to bring one,
and they should, mate, because someone's going to get really badly hurt one day.
Mate, I still wear the wristband, buddy. How quickly have we forgotten about Alex McKinnon and what happened there? That situation, and I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face, was always coming, and we refused to stop players getting pinned in tackles so they couldn't protect themselves.
Yeah.
And then we finally had that happen. And the reason that I bring that up, also in regards to this, is that there was a tackle on the weekend that had no scrutiny. I sent it to the WhatsApp group, mate. Our mate Cameron Smith with the little judo or whatever kind of thing that he did to Herman Essa. And again, this isn't something that I don't think Smith, went, oh, I'm going to go in here and this is what I'm going to try and... Like, it's something that you learn and that you get taught. I mean... And he basically grabbed his wrist and made it so that when he went to the ground, he's had no way of using his left arm to stop his body hitting the ground. And no one made a comment. It was let go. He didn't get charged. It's fine. If the only way that Smith's even in remote trouble there is if SASA had busted a shoulder or broken a wrist or something like that. So we're going to say that the game is saying you've got to get hurt before we do anything about it.
Oh, well, that's exactly what they're saying. They always do, mate.
It's just... I don't know.
They always do. They ban the punch, right? Now let's just be be honest.
Let's unpack. Let's unpack here. Yep.
Look, the punch was one of those things that fans love it or hate it. A lot of the fans, especially the ones that the hardcore fans, didn't mind a little bit of it every now and then. You're generally not going to kill a football player or destroy his life by giving him a whack in the mouth. I mean, there could be some snowflakes out there who are saying, oh, you can't punch, it's illegal. Look, the reason why hockey in America is so popular is because of the confrontation and the likelihood of something happening, and that's what Origin was built on for a lot of years. Was they cleaned up the club game, but then in Origin a little bit more leeway was given, and now it's really been sanitised, which I find a little bit sad in a way. And I'm not advocating kids to go out and do it. I'm just saying, this was the pinnacle of rugby league, and I didn't mind it. I liked it when a couple of big blokes had a stoush. But it's very different, excuse me, from jumping on a guy's head.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
or deliberately incapacitating them so that you can slow down and play the ball. Like,
yeah.
It's...
There's a big difference between holding a guy down for 2 or 3 seconds to slow the play ball down and putting him in a hold that if he moves a certain way, he could pass out.
Yeah.
And look, a lot of these football players, as I've mentioned in the past, are clandestine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu masters. You know, some of them are even black and brown belts, which takes a long time to master that art. And they know exactly what they're doing. And we don't even need to mention their names, mate, because I'm pretty sure that you could knock up a list of 3 or 4 of them without even really trying. So, yeah, it is a little bit... I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And when players do crusher tackles, especially the ones where they lift their body off the ground and bring their full weight down onto another player, I think it should be 6 or 8 weeks. I don't think it should be...
It's the same thing they should have done with the spear tackle and lifting tackles, and they didn't do it. Anyway, quickly with that, the last point on that is that the kudos to the NRL for doing something about it this weekend. Your big test is what's going to happen in about a month's time. Is it going to still be
got to
happening?
keep it up.
Because something that I will say, and it's not directly linked in terms of to its impact on the game, but it's a funny one, is that, you know, that old rule that they brought in about 3 or 4 years ago, whereas if you kick the ball from a line dropout over the goal line, that was a penalty. It was just like a blanket penalty. Watch the games right now. It's no longer a blanket penalty, yet it's easily enforceable. Anyway, there is a rep round this weekend. We obviously have the New South Wales versus Queensland game in Perth on Sunday night, which I'm actually looking forward to. I love a Wednesday night Origin, but something about nice barbecue at someone's house on a Sunday afternoon into a game isn't a horrible thing. We have New South Wales and Queensland playing as well in the Women's State of Origin on Friday night at North Sydney Oval. Cocksmith, I live 10 minutes walk from North Sydney Oval. One of the great regrets of my life is that the Bears are no longer here, because otherwise that would have been fantastic. I'm thinking of getting down there, mate. And we might do... we'll talk to each other. We won't do a podcast, but we'll talk to each other. But have you got a tip? Because New South Wales, I think they won last year, didn't they?
They did. I think they've won... They won 2 of the last 3 games. Anyway, they've definitely won. I think Queensland won the first 12 or so in a row, somewhere around some silly number, 12, 13, 14. My tip this year is New South Wales. New South Wales by 8.
Now, I remember I watched the grand final last year, the Roosters and the Broncos. It was an entertaining game of footy. Is there anybody you should be looking out for? I mean, I'm not as involved in, obviously, as I used to be when I was working at the NRL, but I know Keezy Apps is a player. Anyone else there?
Did you see the little story about her today?
No, I didn't.
She played in up to under 12s with Dale Finucane.
Oh, there you go.
In the same team. Kezi's dad was the coach.
Yeah, from Bega, yeah.
Wagga, Bega, something like that.
I think it's Bega.
I'll look it up. They played 10s, 11s, and 12s together in the same team. And then Kezi obviously had to retire from playing with the boys after years 12.
It was Bega.
So it was quite an interesting little story, actually. But
anybody else you should be looking for? People.
Isabel Kelly.
Yep, centre for New South Wales. Yep.
Isabel Kelly's a great player. Maddie Studden.
Yep.
Halfback. What's the halfback for Queensland's name?
Brigginshaw.
Girl. She's great. Ali Brigginshaw.
Yeah.
Great player. Unfortunately, this year Rowan's not playing.
Yep.
Lovely Rowan is. I think she's retired from rep football, maybe, or maybe she just didn't get chosen. Not sure.
Yep.
But mate, it was a fantastic game last year. I loved it, and I like women's football. I like to watch it. It's any young footballers can actually learn a lot from women's football. It's a little bit like watching women's golf. You can deconstruct their game a lot easier because it's a little bit slower, and you can see exactly what's going on. And it's a really cool way to learn a fair bit about football. Or you can just watch.
Indeed. So it's on Friday night at 7:45 North Sydney Oval. I believe it's being telecast on Channel 9 as well. But if you're in the Sydney area and you want to see some pretty good rugby league, get down to North Sydney. There are 3 games of international football being played on Saturday.
Pacific Island Tests with Lebanon.
Which we love.
Let's
start with the first one, which is played at Mount Smart, New Zealand up against Tonga.
Yes.
Now, these are the games that I wish I could be at. This is where I do miss working for the NRL sometimes because the atmosphere over there.
They miss you too, mate.
Do they?
Maybe. Not sure.
I don't know. No one talks to me anymore. It's great. Anyway, New Zealand. Up against Tonga. I honestly reckon it'll be 75% Tonga fans. It'll be amazing. This is the kind of game, if you're in New Zealand, you've never been to a rugby league game, I would say go to this one. Forget the Warriors are good. It's a good product and the rest of it, but this is the game to introduce yourself to rugby league. The big question, however, as we look at the other games, which is Fiji versus Lebanon, and the one was Samoa versus PNG.
Yes,
I am happy that some players are playing for the team they want to play for now. I think Martin Tapau is now playing for Samoa.
He
and
is.
Jermaine Asako is playing for Samoa as well. There's been some movement around. Obviously, players that could have played for New South Wales have been picked in these teams.
Yep.
But there are a lot of players that aren't playing in this this competition this coming weekend. And this is the discussion I had years ago. I honestly reckon I said this 12 months ago. The discussions I had with Frank Pullatua, who's basically head of strategy for Pacific Rugby League at the NRL, when we're talking about what's the future look like, and it's not a case of just put the games on and the game will grow. The rugby league coaching fraternity, let's call it, are so focused. They got their week off for rep round, which is what they wanted, but now they're taking the mickey, and it's just sad.
Names.
Oh, well, the players that aren't available for this weekend who are suddenly injured. I'm not naming anybody. Let's just say that
there are a couple from Canberra.
They probably are.
I read somewhere during the week that Ricky isn't going to release a couple of players. So,
well, Dunamis Louis is apparently carrying some injuries.
Like Mitchell Pearce.
There's not enough. There's not enough of this international football for a start. But I'm sorry, I can't get behind saying to a player who is Alex Twell's the example that I'll bring up as the big one. He's been playing massive minutes this year for the Tigers. Yes. He's been playing really well. He wouldn't have looked out of place in Saifidi's spot for the Blues, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, big call.
But he is not available for Lebanon because apparently his workload this year has been excessive, and the Tigers want to give him a week off.
Is Mitchell Moses playing for Lebanon?
No, he's out as well. He's been rested. When you miss that many tackles, it's just you've got to make sure that you.
He's doing a Deliveroo shift.
He's not anymore. He gave up his day job at Deliveroo to take $800,000 a year at Para. Nice. But it's just disappointing because it's like this is a one-off game. It's not like we're asking, and as much as we would love to see, 3 of these rep rounds through the year where you get to play a legitimate series. All of them. Like that would be fantastic. You're asking them to play one off, and you've already got, for a lot of teams, they've already had a bye already, who would have been involved in these games, or they're having a bye in 2 weeks' time. And I'm just disappointed because the game is on this.
I get it.
This cusp. There's a cusp.
You've got to understand with coaches as well, mate. They'll do anything to get players a week off. Like that. They really will, and to them, the most important thing, and I get it, is their premiership. They put a lot of work into it. I still think I'm going to go off the reservation for a moment. I still think that the NRL at the moment, or our esteemed chairman of the commission, is talking about introducing expansion, and someone tossed up the other day there's going to be 1 team, which is just totally useless and a waste of breath.
Yep.
If it's going to be anything, it should be 2 teams, and if that happens, if they do introduce 2 teams, let's say for 2022 or whatever, whenever I honestly believe that they should play each other once, and that should be the round. That should be the
17 rounds. Yep.
17 rounds. Now people will go, oh, but what about the other rounds? Well, I've got an idea, okay, and I'm going to encapsulate it very quickly here. Whilst Origin is on, they should have a 4-week competition, right, in the middle of the year, which is a knockout competition a la the AMCO Cup. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Remember the AMCO Cup?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Having a serious case of deja vu right now, but yeah.
I know, but listen, right? And what I think should happen is that both Queensland and New South Wales should not be allowed to nominate any more than 25 players at the beginning of the series, okay? Hear me out. 25 players each, that they cannot go outside that 25, no matter what, okay? Then the other teams, the 18 teams that are left, or that are back waiting for them to come back, what they'll do is they'll play a knockout, okay? But each team must have 6 or 8 players from their New South Wales Cup in their main team. So it brings the fans. It educates them as to some other players that they may not know about. It's a mid-year competition, which no matter what, people will get patriotic about their team, and it gives the alleged superstars some time off, and you see an Origin every 9 days over a 4-week period. That's my idea, and I like it.
I know you
don't. To be honest, but I thought I'd tell you again. I know you've heard it before, but I don't think we've done it on the podcast.
It'll just never happen.
Why not? Just give me a good reason why not.
Yeah, I'll give you an alternative reason. All right,
go on.
What I would love to see isn't too drastically different to what you're saying. I think you need that. I guess my big question is, okay, if we say we play 3 weekends of Origin, okay,
yeah,
how do we manage the week before and the week after to make sure that the players who played Origin and or other games have that sufficient rest before they get back into club football? To me, that's the bigger question. What you do in that 5-week period, if that's what it is, I think is still up for debate.
Weeks.
Well, what I'm saying is, how long do you need after that last Origin game / knockout game, whatever it is, before the new series, the season kicks back in? That's the question you've got to fix.
Well, can you cast your mind back to the 80s when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Do you remember the MCO Cup?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Panasonic.
So
I remember the Panasonic Cup far more than the back end of the 80s.
So how did they manage that? When a team was playing on a Wednesday night.
They just told them that they're playing and they had to deal with it.
Exactly. And that's how you deal with it, mate.
But
they're only playing 17 rounds of football.
Nah. So I know, but I'm saying that the reason that won't happen is the exact reason that we're not seeing Alex Twal play for Lebanon, and we're not seeing Charles Nickel-Clockstad play for the Cook Islands. It's the power of the administration is not as powerful as the coaching fraternity, if you want to use that word. And that's and I think where I'm saying is that I don't think that knockout thing would happen in a clubland situation. I don't think there's more of a possibility that you see 3 weekends of an international football calendar than you see a club calendar.
I'll tell you how you make it. I'll tell you how you make it. You ready for it? You ready?
Money.
Whoever wins gets $1 million.
Only $2 million. Three,
well,
4,
whatever.
7.
Whatever. I don't know. Name your price.
Whoever
wins gets a big chunk of cash.
Who's going to pay for that?
I don't know. The Panasonic. Whoever.
They still Powersonic or Panasonic?
Powersonic, Tui's, Sibian. I don't know. Whoever.
But basically, we'll just see what happens with whether they can ever get to a place where that period of time is dedicated to either your idea, Cocksmith, which won't happen, or some sort of situation where we see Tonga and Samoa and the Cook Islands and Fiji and Lebanon play 2 or 3 games across that period in tandem with the Origin series. I think that
don't think. Yeah, go on.
Because those 5 games, those 5-6 weeks, that equals your season, as you say, if you played 17 head-to-head games.
Yeah, I just don't think there's enough football. If you're gonna have the break in Origin, you've got to fill it with something else. I mean, like the public will turn off and they'll start watching AFL or something, or God forbid.
But see, I'll be honest with you. I even had a conversation today with the bloke at the bank. There you go. That's breaking down barriers. And we were discussing just different things about what people follow, and it's like people won't leave rugby league. I think that's been rugby league's done enough.
Really, it's not on, mate.
Well, I think we'd be fine. Anyway, if you're going to go to some football, this is a good weekend to go to the football. That has been episode 196 of Not the Footy Show. Thanks for your company, everybody. If you want to jump over to Apple Podcasts, it's no longer iTunes. They've changed the name completely. We did have a review, actually, a rating, 5 stars, Cocksmith. Yeah. So well done.
Who did that? Who did that?
I don't know. Somebody, but they didn't write a review. They just gave us 5 stars. So thank you to that person. And thank you for the little bits and pieces around the place in regards to the fact you're enjoying the show. We do appreciate it. We actually had a new a listener who actually said they were going to listen to the show. They listened to the show. They enjoyed the show. So thank you very much. We'd love to hear from you whether you actually give 2 stuffs about what we're doing because, well, we don't, but you might. Cocksmith, it's been a pleasure. You're heading to Friday to the New South Wales, Queensland Women's State of Origin. Then you're going to Leichhardt Oval Pacific Test.
Do you want to know what I'm doing tomorrow?
I'd love to know what you're doing tomorrow.
Well, today I did the PNG men's headshots and team photo, right?
Yep.
But their gear supplier forgot about the women's jerseys, so I've got to go back to Parramatta first thing tomorrow morning and do the PNG ladies team photo and headshots.
Oh, mate.
So thanks to the gear supplier. That was great.
Twice the money.
That's true, but...
Hey! Thank you, gear supplier. Do you want to name the gear supplier? Give him a rap?
Nope. No. I've kicked them in the... So I'm not about to give him a rap.
And then on Sunday, Cocksmith heads to Perth to see Origin number 10. So we will speak to you next time. You can follow us on facebook.com/NRL podcast. I'm at NRL Tweet. Cocksmith is at ROBBCOX on the Twitter and the Instagram.
Yeah. And send me a message on Twitter and tell me what you think about my alternate.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Cocksmith.
Go on.
You know, I'm just going to be very, very serious for a second. Okay.
Yeah. Go on. Play some serious music. Insert serious music. Go.
Feel free to promote the podcast anytime you like, Cocksmith. That's all I'll say. Anytime on any of these channels, you'd love to expand our horizons. Because no one's listening to it when actually, no, I'm lying. People, you do listen to it. You just don't tell us you listen to it.
You would get replies all the time.
The numbers are good. It's just that you still sit there and just listen.
Well, nobody contacts me. Nobody's telling me, other than my good mate Greg Porteous, nobody's telling me that they're listening. So is Greg the only one listening? But I
apologise once again.
400 times.
I didn't say hello when he was at the same game that you were wearing the hat that wasn't the same hat. He was on the other side of the field.
Mentioned that.
Yeah, I know.
Mentioned that.
But
anyway, we're gibbering now. We've got to go, mate. I've got stuff to do.
Yeah, so do I. Edit this stupid thing. All right, it's been Not the Footy Show 196. Go the Blues.
Yep, go the Blues, but the Maroons will win. See ya.
See you, mate.
Not the Footy Show.
So somebody gave us 5 stars.
Oh, yes.
So watch out, kids.
Yeah. We're back, baby.
Pepsi.